Chovy was having a lot of words with Coach Kim right before we ended up getting into this, so perhaps there was an issue with the lobby or something. I don't know what was going on, but he definitely had a lot to say. We'll see what influence that has over this second draft. And you do see, moving into this one, GENG once again on blue side. You highlighted the power of that red side win, and you talked about it as well in game, like how drafting, yes, you used a lot of your best champions for each player, but it's worth it if you can get that red side win. They do stick the landing, so a lot of power here. And on red side, the bans get pretty simple. Obviously, still the Skarner, the Kalista going to be the big ones. Ruler Kalista, something that we've all feared since his debut.
Yep. Don't let that one go through. That is a very good idea. As Mel, Poppy, probably going to be a Jace final ban, unless they were thinking about going for a first pick. Kasante not going to be on the table as far as that is concerned this time around. I'm expecting a Galio final ban.
The Rumble stock's going down a little bit with no Vi, but still definitely playable.
Yep.
And I think Jace is a strong ban here if they don't want to first pick it themselves.
Ooh, bit of a throwaway ban by the looks of things. The Karma going to be taken away. Does mean Jace or Galio are getting through.
Yeah. I'd rather see a Jace ban, to be honest, here from Honda Life Esports on red side. They can threaten the same thing if they move to blue. They
I would agree.
They lose.
Oh,
we're trading
one of them.
And I imagine Jace is going to be the one that goes through.
Yep.
Unsurprisingly, but Zeka's Galio has looked pretty good. It's not a pick I would have ever associated with Zeka, and a pick that I would think never really played to his strengths, but he had that fantastic Galio game where he ended up picking up the Penta, and perhaps that's going to be the look here, because you can go just straight up Galio Camille as first rotation.
I'd like Galio Wukong personally. I feel like if you've got Galio, it's better to have a little bit of extra damage from the jungle. But I think they're definitely picking Galio. I think that's going to happen.
100%. You don't even necessarily need to get Camille in this R1, R2. I just mean before the second ban phase. The first phase, I think you definitely can lock that one away. It's really difficult for GENG to draft it, and it can be very strong into Jace in general. The Wukong is one of the considerations here for sure for Peanut. And, you know, otherwise here you're looking at, I was going to say something like an Ezreal for Viper, and you know, you got to lock this one away now if you're going to get it, and a jungler in this first phase, and they will get the Ezreal.
Yeah.
Could see a Wukong pick away, but it doesn't feel great with the Jace necessarily. And it's not that strong into Ezreal either, nor the Galio.
Yeah, it still does, like, I mean, the stock is pretty high up, especially with the Nidalee banned away as well. But I do think that if HLE wanted it, they would have picked it on R2 there.
It's quite weird, too, because it does give you this face-up information for Hanwha that the early jungling is going to be pretty easy to play out because Wukong isn't really able to gank very well pre-6, so you feel pretty good about the stability of your Ezreal pick as well. As the Varus to come here, a lot of poke in this composition for GENG, and it also feels like a denial for the BO5 here.
Yeah.
Taking that one away from Viper. Both of these AD carries have been phenomenal Varus players, so it's a really high priority pick. And I almost wonder, though, have GENG indexed too heavily into some of the poke. The Jace isn't as poke-heavy as he traditionally is if he's going for a tank build, but still does offer some.
And the Xin Zhao going to be the consideration. That's the other one that goes very well with the Galio. And so I guess, you know, with both that and Wukong up, then you may as well just leave that one. So means that top laners going to be possibly targeted here just a little bit.
I think the Camille is still very strong for Hanwha's draft. You know, even Ezreal's True Shot Barrage is going to love to fly through that. The Galio gets on top, and Varus is very immobile. Sure, you have the Wukong to mitigate some of that, where you just press R when everybody goes in, but still a lot of damage, a lot of safety with that pick. We'll see if GENG agree, as we do see the Azir banned away from Chovy. I like that because it's one of those picks that can kind of safely harass Galio in lanes and in sides.
Also gets him out of there after that heroic entrance does come down, so the disengage potential going to be very high. Is it just Victor as well? You know, just get rid of some of these very standard mages.
I think that's a pretty wise ban here. You know, he does offer you a lot of consistent damage with the lethality Varus there and a really nice front line, so I think it's one of the safer picks for Chovy to go here. Way similar idea, not as much necessarily consistent damage, but does have some artillery. Would have been crazy poke if he had his hands on that.
Yeah, very true.
The Camille, I think, is not a must ban here, but I think it's definitely a consideration.
you could just ban Rel with the Rakan and the Alistair, both already kind of removed from the table. Then maybe you sort of force a Nautilus pick that hasn't necessarily found that much value.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling as well. Bard is an interesting call.
So now it's looking like a bit of a Rel Nautilus trade, perhaps.
Could be. And that final pick for Zeus could be saved, but that means that you do give support counter picks. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation here for Hanwha Life. For the Rumble.
It'd be a fair bit of magic damage, but of course Galio is largely tanky rather than anything else.
Yeah, it does allow the Galio to safely build tank instead of going for the DPS focus build we did see last time around.
Yep. Bit of a fun fact also, ladies and gentlemen, between 2024 and 2025, HLE have won Game 1 in best of 5s 100% of the time. And that is not an Atlas stat. It's 11 wins to 0. Yeah. In Game 1s of best of 5. So they're just pretty good at the very beginning of these longer series. Now, they didn't win all of those, though. If you're a GENG fan, that's going to make you feel better, as that's an Ornn.
So that's going to be Jace going the mid lane into the Galio.
Or it's Ornn support.
Could be. It's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it in this case.
No, neither would I.
Into the Ezreal here, but...
gives them a lot of engage.
It's a lot of late game power here, too. There's the Rel you were talking about. Which,
Rel mid. Ornn support. Jace top, yeah.
Let's see what the final pick is going to be here, because I don't think this is really an Elise situation. You could try to pull it off, but you're just outranged by the Varus. It's really difficult to hit cocoons. The Braum.
I'm kind of into the Braum. The Braum angle's pretty good.
It really allows you to control how the level 1 goes very well, too, and potentially stop some lane swaps. And because Wukong in this game is going to be tough to actually get impact into a Rumble or an Ezreal pre-6, because they just simply will get away pretty easily. Harpoon, Ezreal's Arcane Shift means it's hard for him to make that same sort of impact that a Xin Zhao can make. And then you can use the Braum so incredibly well to fight at level 1 to make sure that your Ezreal gets away from the Varus. And if you can get through the early laning phase well enough to where Ruler just isn't chunking you out of the mid lane when we do head to the mid lane later on, you're going to feel pretty good about this. The side lane power of the Jace is going to be a large portion of, I think, how GENG plays this game out. And it depends on how well Chovy does in the lane. If he can get a big advantage there or gets accelerated through some early skirmishes, then he can really put the hurt on, and that Jace side lane pressure is going to be real. But if he falls behind, and we do end up seeing Viper become the main character as he always is, and get that 2-item spike freely on the Ezreal, yes, Varus outranges him, but there's so much power and so much of a front line here for Hanwha Life's composition. Like Game 1, I don't feel very strongly like one team has won the draft over the other. I feel like it's pretty balanced on both sides, but I give a slight edge to Hanwha this time.
Yeah.
Because I think they got comfort again.
I agree. I also think that there's not a lot of, you know, damage variety on GENG's side at the same time. We'll just have to see exactly what all these builds look like as we jump onto the Rift for game number 2. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like the Braum was kind of a masterstroke, because I was feeling the same way. I was like, oh wow, GENG's draft looking better and better, and then I see the Braum locked in, and for some reason it closed the door, like it was the bookend, you know, that sort of perfectly moved it all together. You have the double layering now of like the Glacial Fissure and the Equalizer that can go on top of one another to really make sure that they're in it for as long as possible. You then get Peanut diving on through, Heroic Entrance to bring them down, Viper can self-peel, and so you're not needing too much protection for his Ezreal.
It looks like Hanwha Life have kind of decided, too, that the power of Rumble in this early game is going to be enough to they trust that Zeus will be able to get a lead over Keen here, and so they're not going to swap the Ezreal away from the Varus, which can be quite tricky to play out. With the Braum, it gets a little bit easier. You can block some of that poke once you get a few levels in, as that's not always what you want to see with the first Q, but Chovy is going to have a good time in this laning matchup because he simply just avoids the poke, which is really difficult to land, and just kind of harasses. We'll be able to get some nice wave clear. And this is the kind of matchup where you see Chovy build those big leads that Chronicler was talking about. We haven't seen too much this year just yet, so he has a lot of agency.
Yep. Zeka just going to be waiting for waves for a lot of this one is what it's going to feel like. But he's also been pretty good at navigating these matchups. A little bit unfortunate. The crushing blow wasn't able to take that one minion. As this is what I'm interested in, because if like this is what Keen has prepared for taking on the Rumble, we'll see how it is going to go, as Duro was tagged by that Winter's Bite. Looked a little bit confusing, as Viper really trying to get his eye in here with those Mystic shots. Understands that throwing it a large amount away from the opponent is not a way to make it hit. So he's nailed that one now. See, there we go. Calibrated.
Yeah. Well, as a few levels come through, the Braum is always so terrifying at level 1 into any melees. And we'll see Rulers start to trade some of that damage back here. Went lethal tempo, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was actually interested in, because Ruler has been our best on-hit Varus player ever. And he's going to be playing it again. So it's a great thing to see. It's going to be difficult to make work, because now it's gone from what looked like a poke composition with the Jace and the Varus to not a poke composition, because this Varus is going to be largely wanting to auto-attack throughout this game. Gives them so much more consistent DPS, though, if he's actually able to free hit. And that's what's going to be the big question.
Without the Comet, though, obviously the laning phase is a little bit tougher to play out into this Braum specifically, too. So Viper is just offering as much damage as he can, and really putting the harass in here, starting to take a slight CS lead. We'll see if that continues to compound. As, Zeka is just going to be waiting for waves, as you put it. And so far, though, minus that one miss we saw on camera, has been doing a good job of catching those. Does buy a Dark Seal on the first back, and is down teleport, so has a teleport disadvantage, which really hurts, but just how this matchup is going to go. This is a matchup where if Zeus messes this up, the whole game plan can really change and everything can get ruined, but like I said, they trust him to have control here, and with the lethal tempo I didn't see earlier, it feels pretty safe to keep the Ezreal in bottom. So I like the lane setup here. Canyon's going to see if he can find something. He is a level 4 Wukong.
Yeah, and this wave in a pretty good spot for Keen just to hold on to it. Canyon going to be canceling this one. You can see Peanut not really in the area. No knock-up going to come through, but Keen is keeping him interested for now. Canyon shows himself, and Zeus going to do his very best doing some alcove gaming here. Knock-up going to be available with that Searing Charge, but now Canyon with the Nimbus Strike and with the ability to close that gap is going to be looking all right. Does he have a Scrap Shield? No! First Blood goes over to the Blacksmith on the top side as Keen gets First Blood on.
All right, well, that Wukong getting barely worked out there in terms of just having enough damage, but he also gets the flash of the Zeus, which feels really nice for follow-up ganks as well. Thought perhaps with the knock-up not hitting the Zeus might just barely have enough space there, but he's just too low, and Canyon can continue to force the issue. Going back to the Zeus, you could tell he's kind of concerned that something might be happening here, but Canyon definitely waits because he expects a ward is there, or perhaps King pinged it, but he waits for a long time, shows at the last possible second, then goes in here. And Zeus just out of button Scrap Shield, trying to get his way there. Not quite enough. And Keen actually picking up the kill there is pretty huge.
Yeah, absolutely massive. Once again, it's GENG starting off strong as Delight moving forward. Oh, Winter's Bite not going to connect. So Dura is able to walk this one off. Peanut now rotating over. Don't know how much information GENG has about this one, as the wave state is kind of doomed. Delight moving forward. There's an Audacious Charge as they want Ruler, but he flashes, gets underneath the turret, and the door is then given, and is going to be a sign that we're going to be backing off. So GENG, they do have to invest a summoner, but otherwise able to mitigate the gank.
Yeah, and it's not like they're going to be getting a huge advantage out of this in the short term. There'll be a little bit of farm lost for Ruler, but ends up getting out safe. Grabs Berserker's Greaves, which is going to be a big spike for the Lethal Temple Varus at this point.
Oh yeah.
He's ready to auto a Braum.
He will be doing that.
Yeah.
He will be blighting that quiver over and over again until the Braum maybe dies. There's now Peanut diving on in. It's just going to be Zeka clearing out the wave, though, trying to get a little bit of tempo back here in this game as HLE are running out of a bit of control. Canyon moves over and will be able to take one of these grubs. HLE wanting to grab the next two. So it's not going to be any feats of strength as far as objectives are concerned going down just yet. Stura going to get slowed down. And will be HLE answering. So Shock Blast not going to connect as now HLE might be looking for a little bit of a turn. Crash down from Dura gets him out of dodge as into the bottom lane goes Ruler. And so Viper going to be running back down there as, oh, don't know about that one there, as Zeka gets a nice knock-up with the Justice Punch. Dura comes over with the Shattering Strike though, and man, another concussive blows just goes wanting.
Yeah, I feel like if Galio, had a little bit more damage in his items. Maybe they could have made something of that, as it was a nice interrupt there on the attempt from Chovy, but fortunately, he's still Galio, and the Guzzle Blow's not gonna quite connect. And Delayed over here, trying to make something happen again. This wave's not in a great spot to follow up, but they want to try.
Yep, Battle Braum, he's going to dive on top of Ruler. The door is going to be given. That is decent peel from Duro, but now Ruler with no flash is trying to survive. Oh God, Zeus is possibly just dead. Scrap Shield at the right time, but Keen just flashes on in. And there's the Ornn solo kill onto the Rumble.
This is what can happen when Ornn gets that kill early, picks up some magic resistance, and he's able to buy a the cowl from, you know,
yeah, Spectre's cowl is also together. So good against Rumble.
Yeah, he just puts it together and he's like, why just keep pushing these advantages and I trade up against you repeatedly? He's got grasp and eventually just runs Zeus down in the lane. You hit some of those knockups, you end up winning out. They don't force the issue onto Ruler because he got level 6 there, so he's able to escape death, but we'll have to back away, and this means Plate Gold and the first Dragon do go over to Hanwha Life Esports, so they do have some win on the bottom side despite Zeus' second death there up in the top lane. He's still farming pretty well.
Yeah, the problem is that if it was the other way around, right, if it was King getting put behind, you'd be able to make the excuses, right? Like, he's going to still have the Ornn in the late game. Like, it'll still be okay. He'll get levels, and then he'll be able to give his teammates cool items. Rumble will be less and less useful the more this happens.
Yeah, I mean, Equalizer goes off here, but it's just paltry damage.
Yeah, nothing happens.
High MR Ornn, and he just flashes for the final auto there. Really well played by Keen. Knows he's got the slow. And now he's got a no magic mantle as well. So he's really nullifying anything Zeus can do.
That's a Negatron cloak. That's like even cooler.
He had the mantle before, now he's got Negatron.
Yeah. So it's from bad to worse, as he also has a level lead, massive amounts of health, and all that good stuff. So yeah, this is a very, very dangerous Ornn. The one good thing is, for Zeus fans, is that Zeus is still pretty even on farm. There you go.
And Rumble still is going to be impactful in team fights. And it's not like he's going to be useless in this game, but he's slowed down, and he's a real easy dive target at this point because of the control that Keen has and how much Keen can push into him and threaten him. So we're going to have a bit of a Australian moment here with the bottom laners going back to the top lane. Neither top laner has teleport, so they're going to be slowly walking their way back to the lane. Neither of them have boots either, so it's a bit of a journey. As Viper here finds himself pretty much dead even with Ruler in this lane, and that's okay. The problem is that this Jace is starting to get to be a bit of a problem, and I think the mid-game explosion we're going to see from GENG is so terrifying.
The problem is it only gets worse after that as well, with all of these ornaments coming in.
Exactly.
And Ruler is on the late-game DPS build, right? Like, that's the path that he's chosen.
And Canyon has his ult now. I mean, this is going to be a team fight where Wukong is going to be incredibly relevant. Chovy wants to commit to these grubs. He has teleport. He's going to get this back here. And it's hard for Peanut to make the same sort of impact in this upcoming skirmish, to be honest.
Oh, HLE smells something. Teleport is going to bring Chovy towards his top lane. They're going to be fighting for these grubs. Winter's Bite doesn't connect onto Ruler, who does have his flash back up and available. Chains of Corruption going to be coming on through as Viper now getting lower and lower. Winter's Bite goes wide. Magnustorm picks up both of the tanks. Chains of Corruption there as well as Canyon's in with the Cyclone. They try and mitigate as best they can, but it is not enough. And there's a kill going over to Ruler. Zeus, not entirely sure about that one, buddy. And he is going to go down. Does, you know, put some hot stuff on the ground there. And Zeker has taken a plate.
Not sure if you should have been studying what we saw from Kingen on the Rumble yesterday.
Oh, God, yeah.
He's trying his best. That was a disaster for Hanwha Life Esports. You had no control. They saw the Jace teleport. I mean, I called it out moments before. Like, he's going to be fast-tracked there. He goes back and buys. I think was able to pick up a pickaxe off of that back. Comes in. Man, you have no control there. There's a Rel, there's a Wukong. It's not a winnable fight. You don't want to give over those grubs, I understand. But I feel like Hanwha Life is too smart of a team to actually be over-indexing into plays like this. Like,
and with Galio picking mid lane as well, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's like he went mid, he TP'd away. Like, you can't walk in on that. The Galio's not in range to ult. Yeah. If Galio was halfway up the river, you could maybe make a play where you're like, oh, okay, we'll counter the Rel ultimate with Galio ultimate. He goes in there. He's pretty thick. Viper's got a lot of space now, but it felt like a disaster. Then Zeus TPing in because Zeka couldn't was your Rumble, bro. I mean, That's not the angle.
Once again, Zeus is brittle. And I've never seen that be more accurately portrayed. As Keen making him look exactly that. Maybe he should have used like the titanium to build the mecha suit. As Chovy is also bullying Zeka out of this mid lane. It is really looking like this game doesn't have a lot of avenues in for HLE at this point in time. Chovy, even if the gold isn't necessarily prohibitively different, it's just the fact that GENG has so many tools moving later and later into the game.
It's practically prohibitive as well, though, when you consider how well GENG has snowballed games. You know, Chronicles mentioned it hasn't felt as often we've seen it this year, but we know they can do it. Even Canyon's presence here almost threatens Zeka.
Well, Wind becomes lightning, and Peanut becomes almost dead as they're looking to defend underneath this turret. They at least do with the minion wave, as Viper desperately trying to hold on in this 1v1 in the bottom lane. Next flash from Duro gets him towards Delight. As Peanut gives away his position there, Viper moves on over, and Duro, I think, is just going to vacate the area. So it looks like maybe HLE are going to opt in for yet another attempt at an Earth, Wind, and Fire.
This is smart because they were able to stave off the Canyon pressure mid. Chovy's out of mana and doesn't have teleport. They're aware of this, so there's a really nice window here for them to come over and take this dragon. You can see Canyon's trying to get something back. Is going to go over here and steal away some of Peanut's camps at the same time. It is Hextech Soul, so you feel really good about the fact that you were able to pick up 2 now as Hanwha Life, but will you be able to get any of the upcoming dragons that GENG show up to is the question that they're going to have to answer for us, because at this stage, it doesn't feel like winning a team fight is on the cards for a while. Zeus may get caught again.
Yeah, Canyon's moving on up, and yeah, I don't think Zeus is getting out of this one. Yeah, some hammer boops. I think Chovy was thinking about giving his jungler an assist and then said, nah, just can't be bothered waiting.
Keen is really putting in, you know, the fact that he was able to get those early advantages with Canyon is really putting a big hole in the top side of the map for Hanwha Life. I mean,
and this is going to be feats of strength as well if this turret goes down. There's the taunt, connects only onto Chovy, who flashes away. They don't manage to take down the turret on this push, but it is looking worse for wear. Canyon's moving on in, wanting to get these 5 minions towards that turret. Audacious charge from Peanut onto Duro. Magnastorm going to come through the point-blank heroic charge as Peanut's flashing away the Cyclone, doing a fair bit of work here. Zeka trying to be tanky, goes back in. I don't know about that one. As there's the snipe, just one after the other. We're all able to take the kill onto Peanut, as well as some icing on the cake.
They may have gone lethal tempo, but the poke is still lethal as well, even without the lethality. And yeah, it's 2 here for GENG and the turret.
And the feats of strength as everyone's flashing. And yeah, Canyon looking for a little bit more. Shock Blast comes on through there as Delight able to stand beside the minion. Arcane Shift out from Viper, that gets them to relative safety. But the problem is they don't have any presence in this game. They're getting forced under their structures. And GENG are angry about game 1, I think.
Oh, I think so. I mean, Chovy's Shock Blast accuracy this game has been pretty insane. And we talked about how, like, yes, it's tank Jace. When you have that cleaver, you do a lot of damage with it early as well. And here things just are pretty disastrous. They want to engage onto a Rel, and then he's just like, okay. And then the idea is, well, Galio's coming, it'll be fine, but they just have so much peel with this Wukong here. And once Ruler shows up, which I think is what they really didn't account for, it's just not fair. And then after this, they stay to try to save the turret and try to get some farm and end up losing another as well. It's just back-to-back-to-back errors here from Hanwha Life Esports, who it's a far cry from what we saw in game 1 in terms of decision-making. Obviously, it's a very different game state, but still, I feel like sometimes you just have to be willing to let GENG take a little bit more of the map. It hurts, and your Rumble's behind, your Ezreal is significantly behind, and you're playing Galio that isn't setting anybody up right now because everyone's so far behind. So you don't want to just give everything to GENG, but they kind of stick around to try to salvage it and give more. So it's kind of lose-lose at this point. 5,000 gold almost on the dot here between these two teams.
And you can see when an Ornn has the 3rd highest gold in the game, you know things are going poorly for the opposition team. This guy is able to build some ornaments pretty soon, only a couple of levels away from that. In fact, just 1 level away from building his first one. And then he's going to be able to make all of the other players' stuff really, really cool. As Ruler and Viper still just facing off. I think this is like the closest matchup that we have, but Ruler being able to pick up all these extra kills does put him 1,000 gold in the lead. As now Zeka looking for Chovy. And Chovy just going to be running away. No worries at all. And so
Rocket
how does
Bell poke.
HLE... Yeah, how does HLE get back in? They're 5,000 gold behind. It is 17 minutes into the game. It's not, like, I don't know, completely doomed, but it feels like it. That's what it feels like. I can't see the avenue back in for HLE.
It's hard because if Ruler is isolated, maybe you could try to pick him, but it's a Braum comp, you know? Like, they don't have the safest long-range, you know, engage that can lead to chain CC. Like, Zeka also has some element of engage, but needs somebody to be there first, and that's going to have to be Peanut. And Peanut he's playing Xin Zhao, so he has some longevity in team fights. He can press R and live for a long time, and then maybe Galio goes in, maybe you get on top of that Varus, but Ruler's positioning has been so good. And because he's not lethality Varus, and because he's 1,100 gold ahead, even if he does get engaged on, he kind of just kites back, flashes, presses barrier, and kills whoever's on top of him a lot of the time. So it feels like the answer is there isn't a way, Atlas, to be honest.
Yeah, it's sort of what I'm gathering. And turrets now falling by the wayside. The outer on the bottom side of the map, not long for the world, as we're looking for
Chovy?
A Hextech Dragon. Yeah, Chovy could be in trouble. Zayas almost just dies as the heroic entrance comes on in. They do manage to get the Justice Punch, but Chovy's so tanky. Now Canyon looking to take down this Rumble. That is going to be successfully executed, but it's a 1-for-1 in the end. And now the Ornhorn's coming through. The triple knock up everyone just in the blender as Viper and Ruler are fighting, and we know that that is not a fair one. Delight goes down. Peanut trying to do his very best as these health bars are so low. And Peanut going to get knocked up. Duro takes that as his opportunity to crash on through. They do manage to take down the Wukong. And Peanut does have a lot of sustain in these fights. Wind becomes lightning, and they do need to kill Keen. He's a lot of money to be taken down, but instead, Keen's looking to try and get it himself. That mini taunt, though, is going to be great, and now Duro has no damage.
Yeah.
And so they could just walk towards him, but with Ruler moving down, that means that HLE not going to be able to find any more fight.
That last Sundered Sky proc feels pretty good.
Oh, God.
Oh.
I saw it happening again.
Top of the morning to you, says little penguin emote. I see you, Ruler.
Yep.
See you in game 3. Yasuo watching this game is like licking his lips with all the knockups we're about to see in this fight. Because Chovy, he's relatively tanky. He doesn't have a Fimbulvinter in this game, but buys a ton of time here. And then Canyon, Duro, and Keen are like, bouncy castle? Yes. All of these knockups coming through. Keen gets the double, knocks up with the Rel, then gets the secondary knockup with the secondary activation of the Ornhorn. And the Forge God is on his side.
Yeah.
And then Keen flashes in for the kill here. And we end up getting a few more knockups in this exchange, and Peanut gets his own, and there's an extended fight. If Ruler was here, this would have been a disaster. Peanut getting that last Sundered Sky proc, really helping him survive here.
Yeah, the Xin Zhao really demonstrating the amount of sustain that you still have in this kit of his.
Like, watch this. He's like, oh,
God.
One more auto. Okay.
It's very unfortunate, as we're going to check this one out from Ruler's perspective, as he chases after Viper, flashes for the ultimate, and manages to just walk him down.
Yeah, with Lethal Tempo, you're not getting away, unfortunately.
Nope. Does not happen. Now, Arakan is up and available. GENG this time, 6,000 gold ahead, and that means that any decision that they make is probably more likely to be a good one. So you can play a little bit more aggressively about it, but this has been the buff that's been the bane of their existence thus far.
I feel like it's pretty hard to mess this one up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But last time they did a really creative way to make it worth nothing, so I'm not entirely sure. You know, you don't want to count your chickens before they've hatched.
Well, things I can count are the amount of wards that are being cleared here. I'm not going to count them, but like it's a lot. There's no vision for Hanwha Life. There's a teleport for Chovy. He doesn't even necessarily need it because he's already walking up. You can see how desperate they are for vision. Viper's like ulting through. Maybe we can get something here. Maybe we can see something. Maybe I can get somebody in a range for Zeka to ult on top of. But GENG are just quite literally locking them out of this objective.
Ooh, Viper gonna get spotted by Chovy here, most likely. He's thinking about face-checking that brush. I don't know about it. And Chovy, champion at the bit, really wants to be able to take it down here. Decides instead he'll throw out a Shock Blast.
Chovy also going for Muramon a second here. Some of the flexibility, the ability to start getting ahead like this. If you were considering going for Fimbulvinter, you can just change it up, build your tier into something else.
Look at that! That's some side lane money.
Yeah.
As Chains of Corruption are going to connect on to Peanut here, as, my goodness, that was the Blight stacks exploding and doing a fair bit. Nicely done. Delight, pretty tanky. 2 items done for the Ezreal as well is a big deal.
He's doing a lot this game, Ruler, on this Varus pick. It's been a pretty high prio pick, and
with the double AP as well, the Wits End third feels so good if he decides to go for it.
I think he probably will, but
he can also go the Muramana as well. Like, sorry, what's the other one? The one that gives you the magic resist.
Oh,
builds out a Hex Drinker. Or Mount Mortius.
Yeah,
Why could I not remember the name of that?
Yes. I wasn't sure where you were going. If you were talking about like he's going to go for a different DPS item, he's going to go Unitals. No, I don't think so. But
I think if he builds it, he'll need 2 daggers. That's all I know. As Peanut here in this brush.
Stop bringing it up! I spent the entire break talking to Atlas about how there's just no way my brain should have thought there were 2 daggers. Like, Kai'Sa would never do that. It doesn't make any sense.
It was very funny.
Okay.
All right, Zeus is going to get spotted on vision, and Trophy does still have to flash. Crash down there from Dura gets him out of the way, but that is an equalizer on cooldown. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, and here in the mid lane, Zeka fighting against Canyon, does have the dash cannon, but my goodness, this is a Wukong that's doing a fair bit of work, finds another charge there as in goes Peanut and finds Ruler. There's the flash taunt, and Ruler once again. This mid lane has not been his best friend, and now Keen sets up the train. Will he be able to get the knockups? Of course he will, as Canyon takes down the enemy 80 carry, but now the Bash Bros are getting back to it. Zeus is looking real healthy, and Peanut and Delight just struggling to take damage here in this game. Zeka as well, going to be okay, and 3 are on the floor for GENG. How did that work?
I get it.
HLE.
I get it. You know, you've got a cleaver, Canyon, and you want to use it, and he's cleaving. Well, there is no reason to make that play into a comp that has a global. There is just no reason. Like, this comp is so sticky, too. Hanwha Life Esports are like, is he really? He commits the ult. So now there's no peel, by the way, when the collapse comes through. Keen is pushing in the side, so they're just like, okay, we'll get some damage down here. Yeah. But Zeka just ults in, and they're like, uh-oh.
It was
no
Peanut's flash was so instant. As soon as Ruler overcommitted,
it's like
they were in.
Yeah, you got a Rel here, and you have all Keen's knockups. He shows up. He gets pulled out of the side, though. Doesn't get that turret, by the way. And then Rumble is just going to burn everyone to a crisp. You need that Ruler damage in this composition. And there was, frankly, there was just no reason. That was some ego gaming, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like that too. But the problem is it's down to a 3,000 gold lead now. Remember, HLE, they had an extra dragon, and now they're all piling on top of Peanut. GENG back on the horse once again, getting rid of the jungler. Absolutely fantastic, especially only 25 seconds away from this Baron buff that's going to be spawning, and a second Hextech Dragon. Hextech Soul could be a 4-stack here for GENG if they continue stacking them up.
And for a lethal tempo Varus, he's going to love it. I do think it was a nice punish there from Hanwha Life and a bit of silliness from GENG, but I don't know how much it necessarily matters because the majority of the game state remains the same.
Yeah.
You know, some smaller advantages than we had before, but it's still a 0-5 Rumble. You know, it's still Galio, who from behind isn't going to have a great target to ult on, who's building AP in this game where there's a plethora of magic resistance available, as you pointed out already, and more is being built. So it's going to have to be more mistakes like that and Ruler getting caught. He's known to get caught sometimes in a specific place on the map.
Yeah, and it was very reminiscent to right about there.
Yeah. Like, chat, can you see the place where Ruler is? Do you know?
There's a heat map, and let's just say the heat map is very small.
Yes. This is Peanut just getting collapsed on here. I mean, look, GENG playing around their control of the bottom vision pretty well. It was a control ward there that they somehow skirted around, I suppose, and then they're able to turn this into Dragon. Just trying to set traps for Hanwha Life, who had to rotate over to fight Dragon. They find the jungler first. But Peanut was laughing after that death. I think he knows this game is pretty cooked.
Yeah, but also knew that there's not a whole lot he can do. Yeah, he has to be in there trying to combat for vision. And Zeus doing his best to find money wherever he can. Hasn't even upgraded his shoes in any way.
No.
which is a little bit unfortunate.
He has a arm guard, so he's got one big fight maybe.
All right, possible battle coming on through here as we could have a Gargoyle joining at any time. Viper free hitting over the wall is fantastic positioning. Knock up onto Keen now as Peanut dives forward. They look for Canyon and they take him down. The train has left the station, but there's no follow-up. And there's a concussive blows we were looking for. Finally, Chovy shows up, but he is way too late for this party. And Ruler as well, he's even later. I think everyone's well and truly gone home, even the people that stayed the night.
I mean, starting this Baron, though, is super greedy for Hanwha Life. Zeka still has ult. I think they think they can do this. Duro looking for that angle, doesn't have flash, tried to hex flash in, but is avoided.
Yeah, well, Peanut can kind of tank it forever as Chovy's over this wall. Zeka trying to keep him interested as the Baron going down lower and lower. Remember, there's only one smite, and it's going to be Peanut that locks this one down. And now Chovy, he is just dead. Peanut dives forward. He's got the support of the Galio there as well as Duro going to get knocked up and taken down. This Sin's now an absolute monster, even from the grave. Speaking of monsters, Zeka needed to press that arm guard, otherwise he was dead. Ruler still does the DPS, but not now from the death chamber.
And Hanwha Life take a gold lead. Atlas, when you asked me how they get back in this game, I just couldn't think of that weird specific scenario where Genji would funnel in like lemmings into a choke point into a massive equalizer that was super well
Why
placed.
didn't you tell us? That's why we pay you the big bucks.
I just couldn't think of this scenario, but I mean, they used the Wukong ult super early defensively here, but it's not going to stop Zeus from dropping an equalizer onto this team. Delight is so sticky as Braum here, so getting out is so challenging. Keen only gets one unstoppable, so eventually he's going to try to use his second to buy some time for his teammates, which he does. And this is super well played here from Hanwha Life in the follow-up. Duro wants to hex flash and set up a big ultimate here for Ruler, but they just spread really well. Like you said, Peanut can tank forever, and that's Baron.
Oh, is this how GENG makes a play for the Otacon, though? Because now Baron has been taken, and HLE are distracted by this Otacon buff. And that Shock Blast did a fair bit of damage. Problem is, like, HLE have kind of got past the difficult part now, though, right?
Yeah,
like, now they're strong.
Now they can just ignore the Otacon attempt from Genji, be like, yeah, you can't do it. We have Baron buff, so you have to back away. And if they did try to do it, Zeka's ult's coming back, so they can just easily come over there. They're using the Galio pressure super well, and man, this game for Genji felt unlosable. There's still an angle for them to win it for sure, but they have lost all control that they once had. Now grouped up on this Otacon, but again, Galio could be there at a moment's notice. Has teleport as well from the side lane to join. And like you've mentioned several times, Otacon has not been Genji's most successful objective.
Yeah, they are terrified of this buff as Duro in a really awkward spot. The Otacon down to about 8,000 health as now Peanut's just walking on up here. Teleport in from the Galio, but he's now surrounded. Viper really far away from this fight. And look at the equalizer. Ruler standing right on top of it. Canyon just spinning, having a great time though. Still, the train, it's not going to get past the door. It's so powerful. Duro going to get executed, and even though Viper's dead, it's still looking all right here for HLE. Zeka just as punching his way in. The winds of war coming down as Chovy gonna get tagged. In goes Peanut now as they're trying to find the DPS. Down goes the monkey, and it's a bloodbath in here. Zeka is just untouched, though he cannot take damage on this Galio.
Zeka's Galio, man, is so impressive. He's got the Riftmaker in this fight.
He's 4-1-10 in this doomed game, Wolf. What
I know,
the hell?
it's actually so crazy. He comes in here and flashes, tries to set up the taunt on the Ruler. The equalizer's on top of Ruler as well. True Shot goes through almost everyone. Ruler is able to avoid it. Chovy spends his entire time in this fight chasing down Viper. Then Canyon has to flash from him, but that means there's no peel for Ruler whatsoever. Zeka takes him out, but he is far from done in this fight. Chases them down here. He's got Phase Rush. He's got his Rocket Belt. Sets up the taunt here. Zeus, last-minute Zonias that he put together here. And Zeka is just a raid boss in this fight. Cannot be killed. Zeus survives with that Zonias and then cooks them to death. Hanwha Life with some clean team fighting. This is a massive comeback we are witnessing here potentially. Now it was, okay, they caught up in gold. They have a tiny lead. Now it's the lead that GENG had. They now have. They're looking to get Soul Point here for this Hextech Soul. Otacon potentially in trade here for GENG.
Well, we'll see whether they can actually get up here in time as GENG moving over Vision as they make their way northward. So it is with full information that HLE are going to be able to now move up and try to contest. He's going down lower and lower. Peanut is going to have to face check. True Shot Barrage spots out the damage being done here. So Otacon will go over to GENG. They have that, but they lose Soul Point for it. and
Baron.
control of everywhere. You can see in this mid lane, Viper is able to just wander towards the inhibitor turret. That whole wave is going to go wanting, and GENG are now looking to try and push the only avenue that they have available to them, which is here in this top side.
Yeah, I mean, the Baron is gone, so...
I mean, I'd hold the wave if I was there.
I
get them out of here.
Yeah.
And he is going to do so. Lands on top of Ruler there as well, as he can now start trying to cook him.
Delight.
As Delight, the flanking Braum! And they get on top of Ruler. They're looking to send him home early. He's trying to get these autos down, and finally he will be taken out. But GENG, they're fighting back. The True Shot Barrage finally going to be sent over. And this was an absolute Humble Life Esports disaster. Not really what you wanted to see from them. And GENG even still have a whole bunch of Otacon buffs as they're looking to break open the base.
Viper here, one man against the world, but I think these GENG health bars are just a little too high.
Is it just the end of the game?
I think
That's
so.
the big question.
I mean, Viper's all out of mana.
Well, we'll see whether he can actually at least send a few of them back. That is first Nexus turret to go down, but these health bars are getting lower and lower. Keen, he's trying to flash in as the Shock Blast goes wide. These health bars, they're barely hanging on. But the Nexus turret loses interest. Another minion wave is going to taxi its way in. And GENG, after trying their very best to throw it as far up the pitch as they could, they pull up their bootstraps and they walk up, they get that ball, and they take it back to their base.
Oh man, this is the kind of win where you feel good about your decisive call at the end. Go for Otacon. It's only Soul point. That one dragon away from Soul is really the extra buffer that allows GENG to make this type of trade. They go top side and just send it. And Humble Life Esports seemingly just couldn't help themselves but to try to force an awkward fight there where they didn't have advantages. I like the idea of a flanking Delight if you're way further ahead than you are. You're only 3,000 gold up at this point. The Varus is still incredibly fed. Just an ill-fated attempt there. And yes, the Galio ult would have been massive if it came like 3 seconds faster than it did, especially with the Rumble on top there. But everything came in kind of piecemeal, and GENG just win the fight and end the game. I think for GENG, though, it doesn't feel like a happy win. It feels like you almost threw this one away, and the coaching staff, I think, probably has a lot of words for them. Early to mid-game, fantastic. A few big, critical mistakes, though, gave Humble Life the opportunity to steal this one away. And now, on our hands, Atlas, we have a series.
Oh, it is all over our hands, and this is a messy series as well. So I think we're going to need to go to the bathroom, Wolf, and wash ourselves up, get as clean as we can for a game number 3 that's going to be looking a whole lot better. Break time, then the space, and we'll be back for that very clean game 3.
블레드 내가 먹어놓는 거야. 아 오케이 오케이. 그럼 싸워 레드 방금 먹었어. 나 살짝 싸우라고. 야 뒤에 봐 뒤에. 나 와도 좋아. 뒷면서 봐 뒷면서 봐. 근데 나 좋았어. 일단 러비. 야 싸움 할만해. 도발 끊었어. 아래 이제 아래. 위로 가. 섞어. 맞지 마. 오케이. 비전 없어. 이제 노플이야 저거. 오케이.